what would life be without tea? It's one of those days here on the island. I'm sitting in the harbour, but this time I'm looking out to it, you're looking back. It's one of those days that's rare, but not impossible. There's no wind. And because there's no wind, and because it's very cloudy, there are clouds everywhere, I haven't seen the sun all day, and because it's very close, very warm, very thick, and because there's rain over there and all around on the mainland, there are a lot of mosquitoes, which is not very good for me. But it's very good for the swallows and for the house martins, and there are hundreds of them flying around. You might hear them, you might see them. And seeing the birds flying around reminded me of a story. It's a story I haven't told for a very long time, and I love this story. I used to tell it a lot right back at the beginning in the day, because I think it says a lot, which anybody can read into it or hear in the story. And it's called The Bird in a Cage, or perhaps A Bird in the Cage. There was once a merchant. He was a very rich merchant. He lived in the south of the country, and he'd made some good money. He was a fair man, a nice man, and he had decided that now that he was getting older, he wanted to retire and move up to the north. And move up to the north he did. And he moved to a beautiful piece of land in the hills, and there he had a house built for him. This house was very, very beautiful. It had all beautiful rooms upstairs, all beautiful rooms downstairs, a lovely library, a fantastic kitchen, and stairs that went up to the next floor. Two, one that way, so you could go up one and down the other. And when the house had been built, he had a garden set out. And it was a beautiful garden. And of an evening he would sit in the garden, he would drink his tea, and he would listen to the silence. But sometimes when he was sitting there in the garden on his own, because he was often on his own, listening to the silence, he felt a tinge of loneliness in his heart. For as a young man, he'd always wished that he would have a beautiful house, and he had hoped to have a beautiful wife. He had the beautiful house, but the beautiful wife, well, that ship had sailed. And remembering his dreams that he had when he was a child, when he was a younger man, he also remembered how it was when he was young, how he had lived. And often he would sit there and have reminiscences. And one such reminiscence was about the times he used to go into the mountains on his own, just walking, just for the feel of the mountains. And often he would sit under a tree and he would meditate. And often he would hear in the distance, sometimes closer, the song, the beautiful song of a beautiful bird. And he would see it in the trees, much in the way that I hear the golden oriole here, which drives me crazy. Well, thinking about all these memories and remembering the song of the bird, he thought to himself how nice it would be to have the song of the bird itself, in his garden. Then he wouldn't feel so lonely. And then he thought, well, why not? I have money. I could employ a hunter to find me that bird. So that's what he did. He employed a bird catcher, who went down to the south and went into the mountains and caught one of these birds. And he brought it back in a golden cage, and the golden cage the merchant hung in the favourite corner of his in the garden, and there he would sit in the evenings, sipping his tea, sometimes meditating, being quiet, scratching his feet because of the mosquitoes. He probably didn't, but I do. And he would listen to the song of the bird. And that quelled his melancholy, that quelled his loneliness, and he felt quite happy. One day he had to go down to the south to do some business. And he knew that when he came back it would be his birthday. So he decided, because he was a generous man, that he would bring a gift for all of his servants. And he went round all of the servants asking them what they might like. First of all he went to the cook, and he said to the cook, I'm going down to the south, I'm coming back, what should I bring you as a gift? And the cook, a clever soul, said, "Ooh, spices. Spices I would like. Because if I had nice spices from down in the south, the food that I cooked for your birthday, and not just for your birthday, but for the other guests, would impress them and amaze them." Thought the merchant, that's a good idea. And he wrote down spices. He then went to his valet, his butler, and said to him, "What would you like me to bring you from down in the south?" "Ooh," said the butler, "now then. Down in the south I've heard that they have these beautiful long coats that are many-coloured, of fine silk. If you were to bring me one of those, how would it be when the guests appeared, not just for your birthday, but anyway, coming into the house and seeing a valet such as I, dressed so well? It would only look good on the house and yourself." He saw the sense of this, the merchant, and he wrote it down, a coat. Well, he had other things that he had to get from the gardener. He was asked to get some seeds that would give beautiful plants. From his tailor, he was asked to bring some material with which he could make some trousers, again for the merchant. He wrote all of this down. And the evening before he was to travel, he sat in his garden and he thought quietly to himself what a good life he had. All of his servants, they didn't think of themselves, they thought only of him. It was very beautiful. And he said to himself aloud, all these things I'm going to bring back from the south, how nice. And then he heard a voice. And the voice said, "And me? What about me? Did you ask me what my wish is?" And he turned and saw in the cage that the bird was looking at him. It was the bird. "You?" he said. "Yes," said the bird. "I live here in this house. I am here in this garden. Why didn't you ask me what I want? How can I do such a thing? Just because I'm a bird, it doesn't mean to say I don't have dreams and desires and wishes. Why don't you ask me?" Well, he did. The merchant asked the bird what he would really like, what his greatest desire was. And of course the bird answered with one word: freedom. "Freedom? Yes," said the bird. "Let me out. Let me free. Let me be in this garden free, and let me fly back to my family from where I came. Because surely it's not right that I'm in this cage, not right that I'm here." "Oh, no. I can't do that," said the merchant. "If I were to do that, then this garden would be robbed of its beautiful song. And when all my guests come and they like to sit in this garden and listen to your song, it would be such a shame. No, I'm sorry, I can't do that. But anything other than that, I will do for you." Thought the bird. "Okay, then I need you to do something for me. I want you to go into the forest where I come from, and I want you to stand on a hill. There is only one in the forest. And I want you to shout out to all of the birds my news, the news that I'm stuck in this cage and can't come to them, because my family, they must surely worry about me. My mother, my father, my brothers and my sisters, all of my tribe, all of my clan, they must wonder where I am. They must have concerns. So just tell them that I'm alive and tell them that I'm here." Fair enough. And he wrote it down. The next day, bright and early, the merchant went off on his journeys. And he travelled down to the south, and he did his business. He went to see his parents, his sister. He went and did his shopping. He bought all the things, the spices, the coat, the cloth, the seeds. And then he began to travel back. And as he was travelling back, he remembered what the bird had asked him to do. And being a fair man, he stopped. And he travelled into the forest on his own. He knew where to go. And he went to the hill, and he climbed to the top of the hill, and he shouted out to all of the birds and all of the animals in the forest the story, the news that he was asked to tell of his bird in his garden, in his cage. As soon as he'd finished saying that, he heard the most terrible screeching and squawking, and as he looked up from one of the highest branches in the tree, he saw a very beautiful bird falling down, and it fell down and down and down and boom, crashed onto the ground. "Oh," said the merchant. What a terrible thing. What a terrible, terrible thing. He went down to see if he could find the bird, but he couldn't. As he was travelling back, as he was walking out of the forest and then travelling back on his horse, he thought to himself, what happened there? Oh no, he thought. That must have been a brother or a sister, even a mother or the father of the bird in the cage back in my house. And upon hearing the news that I gave to it, its heart must have broken and it fell from the tree. Oh gosh, he thought, I have killed that bird. And he felt awful. He came back to the house and everybody was busy preparing for him, preparing for his birthday. And he gave all the gifts, the spices to the cook, who was very pleased, the coat to the valet, who was overjoyed. The tailor got his piece of cloth, and he couldn't have been happier. And the gardener got his seeds and immediately set to work. But the merchant, he avoided going into the garden. At least he avoided going into the garden alone, because he was afraid of seeing the bird. He was afraid of having to tell the bird what had happened. And so he didn't go for quite some time. The birthday happened. It was all a wonderful celebration. The people were all so impressed, so amazed with the food, with the decor, with the song from the bird, with the hospitality of the merchant, who was a happy man, but there was something niggling in the back of his head because he knew that soon everybody would be gone. And sure enough it was that some days later, after his party, he found himself sitting in his garden and he heard a voice, and the voice said, well? He closed his eyes and looked at the bird. Well, what? Well, did you go to the hill? Did you tell my family what had happened to me? I'm afraid I did. And what happened? Well, said the merchant, it was this. I went to the top of the hill and I told them as nicely as I could and as friendly as I could what had happened to you. But as soon as I'd finished saying this, one of the birds, I don't know who it was, but it fell from the tree, from the highest tree, and it fell down and it landed bang onto the ground. And I, fearing that I must have killed it, it must have had a broken heart from the news that I gave to it. And as soon as he'd finished saying that, the bird in the cage took a deep, deep breath, swiveled on his perch, and fell to the bottom of the cage, and lay there on its back. The merchant was distraught. He got up and he went to the cage, he opened the cage, and there, lying on its back, was the bird. He was so upset. Oh no, he thought to himself, now I've killed this bird by telling him of the story of what has happened in the forest. This is all so bad. I should not have done this in the first place. And he felt so bad, so guilty. He called the gardener. Gardener, come over here. I want you to make a very beautiful place in the garden, a little hole where I can put this bird. For I have killed it. I have done something so terrible. And when the hole was dug, the merchant went to the cage and he put his hands in and he pulled out the bird and he held it in his hand and he said, I'm so, so sorry. I should not have done any of this to you. But as he looked closely, he could see that the bird was still breathing. And before he could do anything about it, the bird took one look at him, took a deep breath, stood up, and flew away. The merchant just watched it fly. And as soon as he realized what had happened, all he could do was smile, sat down and drink his tea. That's the end of the story. While I was telling that story, the swallows were flying all around me. They still are. So I'll turn the camera around and you'll be able to see them.